Yo, what up, people? This is your Infinity Midwife. Yo, what's up? What's up? Now, I'm in this beautiful nature out here in the forest, and I felt inspired to make this video because, I just feel inspired right now. So, might as well do one. So, last time we did speak about pleasure, and I feel like we need to go a little deeper into the reasons why pleasure has been demonized, pleasure has been put in boxes, pleasure has been stigmatized, criticized, and only exclusive to men as we know it. But we're getting out of that era. We're coming to a more equilibrium of the powers, of the pleasures. Nowadays women can, especially in the Western world, can expressively and show their power and show their pleasure and show what's pleasurable to them, and that's a beautiful thing. And I feel like there are some groups of people who are still exercising this freedom of just pleasure. Like right now, I'm in a pleasure. It's all about finding what is your pleasure, what is pleasurable to you, right? At the end of the day, it may have something to do with sex or not, and it's okay, right? So, okay, let's do this. In the first segment, I'm gonna share with y'all what are my pleasures, right? And then in the other section, we're gonna talk about what happened to women. What were the traditions, the cultures that literally took away the rights, the birthright of women to just enjoy pleasure? Why? How is that? Right? So, that being said, the type of pleasures that I like, well, first of all, because I was in a situation where I was totally cut off from my pleasure, it was not hard to reconnect with that part of myself. Or, some people say it's your inner child that holds your pleasures, or it's maybe your shadows, or maybe they're intertwined, or maybe they're two in one. We don't know. I can't say for a fact, but all I can say is when you tap into your inner child, when you allow the child within, or the memories of your childhood, or even past life childhoods, because we're not going to dive into this today, but I'm just saying, when we get into the deeper layers of who we are, there are certain aspects of ourselves that just want to come out and want to be expressive, and want to share. And so for me, I've come to realize that I do like a lot of arts, and art is everywhere. Art is in beauty. Art is in beauty. Art is in nature. Art is the body. Art is, the expressions of emotions, expressions of of uniqueness. So art is literally just beauty, and beauty can be expressed in infinite possibilities of ways, right? Just by looking at humans. Each individual is unique in their own way. They have their own experiences. They have their own signature of their soul, and that is art. That is beautiful, right? So art is pleasurable to me in all the sense. Like, I can appreciate art in various ways. I try to be as expensive as possible. Sometimes it may be easy, sometimes it can be I can feel a little triggered, it can be harder. So I like art. That's one of my pleasures. I like to eat. I like, that's one of my pleasures, like taking the time to eat. Like, I'm not a food junkie. I know some food junkie. You know who you are. I know some food junkie, but I'm not there yet. But I find that food can be very pleasurable, especially if you know how to mix certain foods together, if you know how to, even the presentation of food. Like, there are layers to this. And then when you start applying that same art, and then you start recognizing that same art in all aspects of your life becomes pleasure, literally. I'll give you an example. So, because, I consider myself to be a very spiritual person. So when you're sitting, okay, so let's just say you're going through a hard situation, okay? You're dealing with some emotions that are very hard to deal with. You're with some people that you don't like being with, and then just the whole evolution of the situation. Then you get into a better place, or maybe you get into a worse place, and then you have to go through the process. So just the process of life is beauty. You can find beauty in it. There's art to be shared and expressed and viewed, and there are several perspectives to art. And so that's pleasurable to me. That's pleasurable to see that, yes, I can be very impatient, but when I look at things in hindsight, like when I come out of situations, I can turn around, look at it and say, well, that situation was hard, but still, it was beautiful. So there's art everywhere. When you process your thoughts, your thinking, when, you process things with your mind, there is art in the mind. They're just the way that you think, the way that you perceive the world, the way that today you're feeling a certain way and tomorrow you're going to feel something else. There is art in that, and that's pleasurable to me. Oh, man. Okay. So, yes, life is pleasurable to me because there's this cycle of birth and death. Like I said, I used to assist women birthing. I gave birth at home to my 3 boys without assistance, without midwife. Like, I did it in a very intuitive way. And that to me was beautiful. That to me was pleasurable, literally. So I'm not going to dive deep into my experience, but that to me was pleasurable. Just my life as a whole has been pleasurable in many, many ways. Just the way things turned out for me. Again, it's a way of perspective. People can look at my life and be like, no. But I look at my life and I'm like, my life is beautiful. My life is art. There's art. There are artistry in the way my life was built, So that's beautiful. That's pleasurable to me. So by looking into my life, I can look at other people's lives. I can look at what they've been through, they dealt with, and that's pleasurable to me, to just see the essence of the human evolution, of the human expression of each unique individual souls, and that's beautiful to me. That's pleasurable to me. So again, yeah, I'm a very sensual person. I like my body. I like the way I look. So that's pleasurable to me. That's pleasurable to me, absolutely. I'm a very sexual person as well. Because again, if I love life and I love death, I like everything in between, literally. So there's a lot of things that's pleasurable to me. So yeah, pleasure can be found in the worst nightmares. That's a little hard to go, but yes, pleasure can be found everywhere, literally. So that being said, I spoke about my pleasure. Y'all know me now more. So you see, I would invite you guys. Now I'm working on a lot of projects, but I do hope that at some point, we can come together as individuals and be like, hi, my name is, and instead of saying, I do this for a living, I say, this is what's pleasurable to me. And then people get to know one another on the things that are pleasurable to them. Instead of focusing on, on the things that, because when you start sharing about your own pleasures, when you start sharing about the things that you're really passionate about. Can be little things, can be things that are perceived as, useless. But to some other people, it might seem very, very beautiful and pleasurable. So I feel like, at some point down the line, I hope that as humanity continues to evolve, we can come to a place where, we can be more open about the types of pleasures we enjoy doing, and then actually attracting or magnetizing or, creating those groups of people that are like-minded, that likes the same things, that are, that are pleasurable to them. And then they create their own world. Literally. That's my wish for humanity. So, that being said, why are we not in this space? Why are we not in this space of pleasure? A lot's got to do with the era that, again, we were in. We were in a different era where it was not about pleasure. It was about bondage. It was about keeping people stuck, keeping people in those illusions, those disbelief, those ways of being raised, those ways of enjoying life or seeing life. And so I feel like a lot of cultures, a lot of religions played their part in reinforcing that. If you look at all three religions, okay, now I'm not to bash anybody's religion. You can practice your religion. I'm not going to be the channel to bash on people or create separation. I'm trying to bring, if anything, people together. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, we know religion in all of the known religions that we know, like the three major ones, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. We happen to find that, woman or the feminine essence has been completely erased. Now, I know it's debatable and people might want to say, criticize this and want to back it up, and that's fine. You can do that. I'm not here to say you can't. Who am I? But I'll say that, if you look at things, as soon as there is a sort of authority that proclaims how femininity should be, they're not coming from a place of power. They're coming from a place of bondage. And that's important to recognize because it's everywhere, literally. So if we look at religion, we know that the three monolithic religion do teach that, how the feminine essence is something that needs to be boxed or that needs to have a certain authority to it, this external authority, because when it's not boxed or when it's not put under some sort of power, there's what we call, the wild woman or the witch or the demon, or, it's demonized. When that feminine essence is not put in a box, it is perceived and it is seen as the devil, literally. So I feel like those religions contributed into taming the feminine essence. When I speak of feminine essence, is everything in that speaks of creation, okay? And now I know y'all are probably going to want to debate me on this, but I'm not here to debate. I'm here to share. I'm here to share. So y'all are probably going to want to, counteract whatever I'm saying, but just listen. Just listen. Feminine essence, there's a thin line between masculine and feminine. They're usually complementary to one another. It's usually a whole, okay? So when we speak of the feminine essence, I'm not literally just talking about woman. Woman is part of it, right? But it's humanity as a whole, because men also have the feminine essence. They just don't, it's been perceived a certain way for so long. But then when we look at the feminine essence is everywhere. We look at nature. We look at the cycle of life. We look at the seasons. We look at the animal kingdom. We look at the emotions, we look at death, we look at birth. Like almost everything is the feminine essence. Everything is, right? Literally. It's just about perceptions again. You know, when we talk about in humanity or human or individuals, you know, there has been this separation between men and women. But we know that, you know, in the process of creation, within the first few weeks, we know that, you know, the human that is being created is feminine in essence, and eventually with the chromosomes and the X and the Y chromosomes is going to develop into a boy or girl. So all of this to say, you know, like there's science to this, you know. And those that wants to stay in their toxic masculinity will do that. But those that recognize that there's balance between essences, those two essences, those that recognize that, the fundamentals, and they are true about that, they're going to agree. So when we start from that base, when we get from that, and then we recognize that in the books and the textbooks that's been promoted through religion, through education, through all the spheres of life, the feminine essence has been demonized, or the pleasures or the expressions literally have been demonized. So because again, you know, I like art. I said that. I like art. And you know, I recognize that there is the feminine essence, and then from that feminine essence came that masculine essence. So I recognize that there are things that needs to be addressed, that there are things that needs to be rethought or rethink. We can no longer advance or evolve as a species who want to come off with false illusions or with false belief or false ways of thinking and false ways of being. Like, that's done. So when we talk about pleasure, we know that one of the ways to hold down women, because we're talking about a reality here. We're humans, we have bodies, we have sexes. So we women that, you know, that are part of that creative process of birthing or continuing humanity or having that space that is reflective of the universe within her womb, when we recognize that, you know, it's the feminine essence. So we know how through religion, through media, through culture, through traditions and everything, the feminine essence has been put in a box. You know, how it expresses itself, how it needs to be, how it needs to think, how it needs to behave, how it needs to thrive, how it needs to have ambition, how it needs to settle, how it needs to grow, how it needs to die, how it needs to, like, we've been dictated all the way to our deathbed on how we should be. Have you not known that widows in India, I'm just going to speak on that. Widows in India, when their husband die, they become this stigma, or, you know, they go and live in exile because their husband died. What the fuck? like who thought of that shit? What does that mean? When my husband died, I become this you know, this marginalized being. Like, who said that? And so they live off together, widows all together, and then they have their own ways of like, I've watched a movie on this, and I'm pretty sure it's a reality, you know. So that's just one example of so many. Like, we can look at every culture, and every culture has had this form of authority to box the feminine essence. Just look at how women and children are treated, and you'll figure it out. So when we look, let's say, for instance, at China, have we not experience some sort of genocide on little girls? Like, why nobody's talking about this? Little girls have been, when was it? Like, can somebody check the date? There has been some time where, they started aborting little girls that didn't want little girls. They started killing little girls. Like, what? What the fuck? Who said? What? And now look, some places in China or in Asia, men are having a hard time finding women. Yes, it's been generational. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, 30-year-old men in China, like, when the clock starts ticking about marriage, when they're looking for a woman they can't find. So what do? They look outside their race. But that has been planned. There's a reason for everything that's happening, right? So all of that has been designed for an era that kept the feminine essence in bondage. Okay? Oh man, I love it. I'm loving this. I'm loving this right here. So, all this to say, so that's just, okay, I touched on India, I touched on China. If I touch on Africa, yeah, I'm going there. If we look at Africa, the continent, we happen to find that there has been so many traditions and cultures to deem or to, no, not to deem, to control, have stronghold on the feminine. If we look at female mutilation, nobody wants to talk about that. That has been a huge one for so many generations. Me coming out of that generation, well, no. No, I was not mutilated, but I come from a line of women that were. So I had to break some generational curses. What's up? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to break generational curses over here. This ain't no jokes. Like, this ain't in the movies. This is real stuff we're talking about. And if you look at my previous videos, I've been talking about unworthiness. And when we dealing with how women have been put into boxes or have been put into some sort of chain of bondage where there has been constant authority and power over her, we can see the damage, whether it's through the individual's balance, the individual's emotions, the individual's physical, the individual's mental, the individual's psychology, the individual's soul, like, yeah, even. So there are layers to this. So, when we think of female mutilation, I can be triggered over here, but I'll keep going. Like, there are so many impact about pleasure that has been totally shut down. And that's why you find a lot of women in Africa, like, material gain is so big. It's such part of the culture that, when you find a man, he needs to have money, he needs to have things, he needs to do this and all these things for you. Like, that's a mentality. But that mentality comes from an imbalance, or comes from an illusion or a belief that because you are no longer in contact with the deepest layers of pleasure for you through mutilation, there's an aspect of yourself that dies down. And so when that happens, you find your worth, again, the theme unworthiness, you find your unworthiness so big that you just start relying on a belief or on an illusion that worthy would only get attained through marrying into families that are rich, for instance, or to accept to prostitute yourself or to sell your body, because you will always try to get that that worth, and that worth is going to be expressed in recognizing worth into beliefs, concepts, ideas that, you know, you're not worthy, but all these things outside of you are more worthy than you. So that's why it's easy to, you know, like forced marriages and the concept of prostitution, of, you know, there are so many things that when we look at, you know, we try to think that, you know, man, it's just too hard for me to talk about this. So let's just cut this clear right here. So yes, female circumcision is a big one. You know, there are many layers to this. Like, I'm going in my thoughts, and then I'm just so there are some other cultures where there has been things done, and especially at a very, very early age, into young little girls in places in Africa, that will take away that pleasurable part of themselves, that birthright of pleasure. And so there are many other traditions and cultures when we look throughout the world, and the ages and the traditions and the beautiful people that we're creating with on this earth. We find that there has been a lot of things to control the feminine essence. But we're coming out of that era, and that's good news. You know, we just need to tap back into that feminine essence, tap back into that pleasure. What is pleasure for you? And own it. So that one day, like I said, maybe in 50 years from now or 100 years from now, we introduce ourselves, and then we automatically say, this and this and this and that is pleasurable to me. How are you? You know, something like that. Like, it becomes a form of introduction. Anyways, guys, that was the video for today. I hope you liked it. I hope you found something pleasurable in it. Take it, share it with whoever needs to hear this, you know. And again, try asking yourself, what is pleasurable to you? I know what's pleasurable to me, but what is pleasurable to you? On that note, the Infinity Midwife is exiting the scene. What's up?